Good morning, everybody. We were talking and not paying attention, or I wasn't paying attention.
Morning.
That way.
We have
Bill
a special guest today.
Yes, we got Gail here. Bill is on his way back. He's actually in the air right now, coming back from Spain. And I think he's going to have some good video and pictures of riding the bullet train over there, or what their version of the bullet train. And I think
he said they were going about 187 miles an hour, and he couldn't even tell that they were moving.
Yeah, he said that the trains in Spain rock. So, but anyway, Jerry's got to work today, so he's not going to be with us. And Shannon might pop in, but he's not feeling well, so I don't know if he'll be here or not. But you're stuck with the four of us. But thanks for coming by, Gail, and being here.
Anytime.
Steve, you want to run down the roster here?
I still say we need to roast Dennis.
You got her vote.
Well, good morning, everybody. We got Lynn McCurdy. We got Schuylkill River Valley John. Good morning, Rob T-Man. Split Rock. Good morning, Lee Anfield. Good morning, my buddy Bernard. We got our favorite pilot, John 2618. How you doing, buddy? We got Lynn McCurdy, and Jerry's in here too. He's on the road. He's working. We got Rob T-Man, Almar, and I think that's it. Anyway, good morning, guys.
Good to see everybody. Yeah, we don't really have anything to talk about, but
we got Roy.
Do we ever?
Well, we do have stuff to talk about. We just stuff we won't talk about on the show.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
and we got Lehigh River Subdivision. You popped in, John Tanzillo, and our favorite truck driver, Roy Hardwick.
Hey, Roy.
I wonder where Roy's at today.
Yeah, where you at, Roy? We ought to guess. We ought to try and guess to find out where he's at.
He's probably at home on his couch.
Yeah, he might be. He might be on his couch in his truck.
Yep.
Anyway, again, Gail, thanks for joining us today. So if you guys want to ask Gail any questions about Dennis, now's the time.
Yeah. Let's not make the show about questions from Gail about Dennis. I see that going up in flames.
Well, we could talk about Claude's airplane. He was showing me all the planes he's built before the show. Holy crap. Man.
Yeah, I would do that if everybody wanted to see it. I don't know if everybody wants to see that.
Well, Steve, didn't you share some pictures of some work you've done on the back side of the locomotive? Did you replace some things, or?
Yeah, I did. I did a couple things I can show.
So you could show us what you've done there for sure.
Okay, I could do that.
Yeah, because I didn't do anything on my layout this week because I was out of town.
Settings, camera. Yeah. Boom. There we go. I'll try to hold it still. Okay. Let's see. Let me get up here. Well, I think I solved the wood coming up problem. What I did is I put some brass plates on the front. Should keep those boards down. I don't think they're going to be lifting off anymore. And the back, I had a couple extra flag staffs that they're just like the ones on the corner of the engine on the front. So I just stuck those there.
Are you talking about those brass?
These guys right here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you see, they are also on the front.
Okay.
Yeah, it's to stick a flag in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really nice.
You wouldn't do that. I mean, you would do that in the back, but at least it holds that. It looks better than putting screws down. I really didn't want to put screws to hold that wood down.
Yeah.
Right. Your your coupling there on the back of that, is that like, are your screws attached to something other than the wood on the back side? Or are you going into a steel frame there? Or
it screws right into the, well, you can't see it, but it screws right into the frame.
Are they screws or are they bolts?
They're screws. They're stainless steel screws, and they're hell, I think they're probably maybe an inch and a half. They go all the way through the wood into the frame of the tender.
like a sheet metal screw?
No, they're stainless steel machine screws.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they're thread for 6 30-second thread. So yeah, they're not going to pull out. That's for sure. And the only other thing I did, and I did this yesterday, just as a wild hair, I painted my valves.
Oh, that looks good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what the prototype do.
Well, so you can see them right away. Yeah, you were right, Steve. Roy's still in bed at home.
No, but I think I already told you guys I did this little tensioner on here. I think we did that last week. But
yeah, Lehigh River says the amount of craftsmanship in that 440 and tender is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I would agree.
Well, I can't take credit for all of it. I mean, John did the hard part. Did all the machining.
What happened there?
What?
Well, your picture went small. I don't know why. Oh well.
Yeah. Let's see.
Lynn, yes, Steve does have a YouTube channel. It's Steve Arnold, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Just let's see.
In fact, Lynn, in the description of the show, it should have the link to his channel. It should have the link to all of our channels in there. Or sometimes you put links in the description, like for our merchandise, and it'll work the first time I put it in there, and then when I go back to look again, it won't work. So I don't know what's going on with that. But if anybody does want any merchandise from the store, let me know, and I'll send you the link directly, so you can go about it like that. But I think the links in the description to our channels work. If not, just let us know and we can shoot it to you or put it in chat. Okay, Dennis, so what were you doing besides dodging hailstones?
Well,
And sweeping stuff
I've
off the
gone
floor.
back and forth of whether or not I want to share this, but since we don't have a bill in the show, I guess I'll go ahead. Otherwise, it might be a really long, boring show. So let me find my settings here. It'll probably go, into a whole nother subject.
Ow!
You better be careful, Dennis.
That's
You'll be
dangerous.
sleeping out there in the shed again.
Yeah.
So
So you know that I'm working on trying to figuring out all of the elevation for this, and what materials I'm going to use. And I posed a question at the end of the previous video, and I've already got quite a few answers to that video, to that question. And so what I've done, I'm going to turn the light on here.
And Steve Anderson says the show is never long and boring. We just never know where it's going to go. This is true.
So what I've done.
Oh, cool. A little miniature mock-up.
Yeah. This took me about, about a half a day on Monday. And I've got that Proxxon wire cutter there, which made this part of it pretty easy. So now it's a matter of figuring out how high I want the buildings to be and cutting, because I plan on using foam for that for sure. And, you know, all of it is to scale. The only thing that might be a little off about it is the radius of this curve. I think it's a little flat there, but that doesn't really matter. But my thought on this is I will eventually go in and actually see what, you know, 9 inches actually looks like. You know, a scale 9 inches as you look at it from ground level. You know, if you're a little HO dude, or in this case, a 1 foot equals, I think I did 1 foot equals 4. I can't remember.
I think that looks like a really good Z-scale time saver.
You know, it kind of does, doesn't it? I didn't even think of that.
Well,
that's the ultimate goal here, is to look at how high do I need the ridge line to be that's going to come back through here and through the back side of town. And eventually I will also draw in my mine that will sit right here, is just to get all that put in there and see what it's actually going to look like, so I'll have an idea of what I want to do before I do it.
Well, Hy wants to know if you're going to use this for your control panel.
I think it's a little big. I think it's a little big. If I were to cut this right here, you know, I don't know. I don't know. It might not be too big to be a control panel. I haven't really, the control panels are still things that I haven't 100% for sure decided how I'm going to do yet.
Well, that'd be a cool control panel, have the buildings on
it. Well, no, I won't put buildings on the control panel. That much I know for sure. But the rest of it, that might be about the right size. I don't know. So that's where I'm at, and just trying to figure out. You know, right now I'm leaning towards foam to go in and create the foundation for all of these buildings, to go ahead and create them out of foam with the foam cutter, because then I can get them at whatever level I want. And, you know, most people's comments on that video, there seems to be a shared consensus or concern that if I do the exact same height for every building, that it will look unnatural. And I agree with that. So,
well, yeah, and you can't just leave them on the board and tilt the board, because then everything's leaning. You can have every building's got to have its own foundation.
Exactly. And I tried to kind of explain it in that, not the last video, but the video before. What I'm thinking is there's going to be essentially 2 shear lines, if I use the term shear line. And what I mean is, I know there's a shadow here, but there's going to be, you've got the building and the foundation, then there's going to be a boardwalk in front of it, and then there's a street in front of the boardwalk. So this shear line is its own level. I want the sidewalk or the boardwalk in front of it to be its own level, so it can be independent of the foundation of the building. And then I want the street to be its own level, independent of both the boardwalk and the building. Because if you look close at those pictures, the street, it looks like it does have a little bit of a crown. And even if it doesn't have a crown, it absolutely has a probably a hand dug ditch or gully in front of the boardwalk, so that water could drain all the way down to this end. And so there you're looking at, the street has its own fluctuations, the boardwalk has its own fluctuations in front of the buildings, and then the buildings have their own fluctuations. So you're looking at 3 different levels that there's little chance that you're going to look at and go, all that is the exact same. That has been my plan from the beginning, but I don't think I did a very good job of explaining, and I still may not have done a very good job of explaining my vision for that.
Well, Dennis, I would think your boardwalk is going to really be not necessarily directly tied to your foundation, but it's going to be the same level as your foundation for the most part, unless you're going to have it. Oh, okay, I see the picture now. The boardwalk actually stays more level with the street.
Correct, but you can clearly see that the street, especially on, let me see here. I don't know where my pointer is. Oh my gosh, no pointer. But this right here, because of the way the light is hitting, this is a lot more understandable.
Yeah.
Than this over here. But that boardwalk, like in this building, you can see that it rises up here and then goes flat across there, then rises up here and then probably goes flat across there. That's the look I'm trying to get.
Yeah. See, and I was envisioning that for every storefront, that step up to that next storefront height and then going more level with the boardwalk. But I can see what they did there. It's actually still got a rise, even though it has a step up.
Right. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm wanting it to be able to, the eye drawn to that boardwalk and independent of the road and independent of the foundations of the buildings. And that's kind of where I'm at, is what material lends itself best for the foundation that I can put little bitty strips of wood on top of. How I did it here, this was simple because everything was already, the same level. And I just, glued wood down on top of foam. And essentially that's what I'm going to do here too. But, can I get a thin enough piece of foam, and I might just have to get multiple pieces of foam butt ended together. It's one of those things I'm going to figure it out. I just don't really know exactly how I'm going to get there.
Well, because of what you're trying to do with this, those mock-ups are going to come in very, very handy.
Yeah, I agree.
See, that's not something I would do, but then, I'm more of an eyeball it kind of person.
Yeah, well, I'm both, because I'm definitely doing a lot of eyeballing.
Oh, by the way, we lost Steve. His internet crashed.
Oh no.
So it's just us now.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I think you're on the right track, and like I say, I can't wait to see it finished because it's going to look awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I want to get the basic scenery elements, all the groundwork. I want to get that done, and then once the groundwork is done, then I'm going to really throw my efforts into working on the scratch building of the buildings.
Well, like I say, it's gonna look awesome. Of course, I've been there in person, and I can tell the scale of everything, the scope of everything, and it's gonna look really good. And hearing your vision for it, how you want it to look with the seam blocks and stuff like that, it's gonna be really good. Plus, you're just way over the top on detail. So, well, but having operated on your time saver, you were the same way with that. So that's how I can tell it's going to just look awesome when you get finished with it. It really will.
Yeah. And of course, the plan with all of the structures, I'm not going to try and get way over the top. Of course, it'll all depend on, in the moment, how I'm building those, how much detail will be in them. But, like what I said in the last video, I'm wanting the streets, that Blackhawk block, the block of Blackhawk in Sealack Street or Salac or whatever I like calling it Sleestack because I'm weird that way. and then Gregory Street, that's supposed to create an overall backdrop. You know, I'm looking at it as a backdrop for the trains as much as I am anything else. And then, you know, the far east end where those two industries are, that's what's really good. When someone comes in, they're going to stop and look at that because there's going to be a ton of detail there.
Yeah, that'll be good. And then you've got those little, well, I say little, you're going to make it into one industry or have two industries that are like little signature scenes there.
Yeah,
in front of all that.
All one big industry, and I'm still kind of fleshing out in my head what I want that to be. But I'm thinking it's going to be a windmill factory.
Yeah. Yeah, see, and also once you get done with your city blocks and stuff, and you've got the boardwalk in, and you start putting people into that, and other little details like mailboxes maybe or something like that, you know, that's really going to draw a lot of people over to that also.
Right.
I've noticed that. I've gotten more comments from family on the last couple of buildings I did because I actually went and put detail into them before I put them on the layout, and you know, they're all going, oh, that looks so much better because it looks like it's alive. You know, you've got something in there other than just the building. Anyway, anybody got any questions for Dennis on that? Let's see who else come in here. Steve's gone, so I'm not watching chat enough here. Brian's here. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Who else is here? Paul Scott August. Is that? I guess that's your full name, correct? With the C and W line. Do what?
He's got a fantastic railroad. I said, yeah, he's got a fantastic railroad.
Paul, get over and look at that. I don't think I've been over there yet.
He's been a guest, right?
Was he a guest?
I think so. Or maybe he was going to be a guest when we didn't get. We're old.
And I slept last night pretty good, so. Oh yeah, I lose track sometimes of who's been on and who hasn't been on. But anyway, Mark Pruitt's here. Good to see you, Mark.
Okay, so he has not been a guest, but we talked about having him as a guest.
Okay.
We need to have him as a guest.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We need to have you as a guest, Paul. And I tell you what, if anybody wants to be a guest on the show, just shoot us an email at backontrackmoderators@gmail.com. And it's all one word, lowercase or uppercase, doesn't matter on the email, but it's all one, Back on Track Moderators. And we'll get you on the show. By the way, while we're talking about that sort of thing, the weekend, 2 weekends from today, we will not have a show. Okay, that's the weekend before, I think that's the 1st of July. That weekend we're going to take off. I'm going to be out of town, and everybody else just wants to have a week off, so we will not be having a show the weekend before the 4th. And everybody have a good 4th and stuff, and enjoy the holiday.
Lynn's got a question. He says, aren't your buildings made from solid wood? One of my buildings on the Time Saver is made of solid wood, yes. My plan is that some or most of the buildings in Blackhawk, what I'm considering the backdrop, you know, what I've been showing and everybody's probably sick of looking at, is yes, most of those buildings, my plan right now is for them to be made out of solid wood. That might change. It just kind of depends on how easily I can get it done. Have you looked at getting door window shims to use as foundations for slopes? I've got some plastic shims. I suppose you could create your own shims, but my thought on that is unless they're already really small, because I don't know. I mean, I might consider that. I'm leaning heavily towards foam just because I've got that Proxon foam cutter and it makes cutting foam easy. It's just a matter of, can I cut it and keep it level enough as I cut to create the slope that I need and or the foundation.
Maybe use the shims as a fence so you can get the, so you can get the angle on it.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Let's see, that's not the one I was trying to get up there. Oh, Brian asked me a question. Have I ever been to the Shady Lady in Silverton? I've not actually gone inside. It looks to me like it's a bar and grill kind of place. So it would definitely be one of those places that gets some traffic when the trains come into town. It's funny because when you're there, like I was the last time we stayed in town, when the trains are not there, it's amazing how few people are there. You can go anywhere and get a table anytime. When the train comes into town, everybody's going to get lunch and stuff, and that's not the time you want to try and find something to eat. Of course, if you're on the train, you can find a place to eat. But most of the time when we were on the train and going to have lunch, we went to the Handlebars. It's a pretty good bar and grill place. But they've got some good eateries there in Silverton if you're ever up there. And the Shady Lady is down close to where the train parks when it comes into town. Oh yeah, that's it. You're right there, Brian. All the buildings on that street, in fact, that is the street that started the red light district moniker, because the railroad guys would come off and they'd take one of their lanterns with them and hang it out front so that the crews could come get them when the train was ready to leave, or find them when they needed to find them. And so that's why it got called the red light district. But yeah, there's some really cool looking buildings there in Silverton. Yeah, it used to be. It's a saloon and grill. I think they've got food also there now, but it's a neat looking place inside. I looked inside the door, but we didn't go in.
High's got a question, and I've been asked this question before about lighting the buildings. I'm not overly concerned about lighting them, but my thought is, like, we'll take a look at this building. And what I can do is I can come in and notch out, half inch or an inch of the underneath side of this building, so that when I put in, this part of it, which everything's backwards and upside down to me, but whenever I put in what will be the front fascia, the facade of the building, or whatever it's called, then there will be depth in here that I can put an LED in there and come up from the bottom like you would any other building. That's kind of my thought in how I will approach lighting if I want to take it that far. Because again, I'm not overly concerned about the lighting in those buildings, but I do foresee a way of getting it done if I want to go that route.
Yeah, that's similar to what I did some of the flats behind the yard on mine. A couple of them I cut out and actually made them about a half inch deep and have the lights back inside of that, so it looks like it's a lot deeper than it really is.
Right, because Tichy has got, this door is recessed in. You can't, you just have to kind of understand that part of it. But the door is recessed in probably 3 feet, 4 feet, and Tichy makes these, and all I have to do is figure out how deep do I need to notch this building here. And my thought is I will build on top of plastic that can slide in, and create the whole window front, if you will, as its own unit that will slide in underneath what's being cut through here, and then the front facade will glue in on top of it.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking right now.
Well, good morning or good evening, good morning, whatever it is to you, Shannon. You look like you don't feel good.
Nah, I'm not. The bloody boys have been sick all week, and I've been around them all week, and it's bloody hit me hard today.
Yeah, that'll do it. Steve lost his internet, so he was on here, but he's gone now. Oh, yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay, Jack wants to know, is there a certain size each building will be to conserve space for future projects on the layout?
I don't foresee any other future projects in that space. That space is dedicated to everything that's there right now. I don't foresee. The only other thing I might consider doing is there's a church and a schoolhouse that's on another road beyond, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to leave those out because I think that's going to cramp my ability to get a believable ridge line on the backside. That would be the only other thing I would consider doing there other than what you already see. Yes. And every one of these buildings that you see in Blackhawk, or what I'm calling Silver Gulch, I use the dimensions from a Seaborn, is that the right? What's that map company that?
I think you're right. I think it's Seaborn.
Is it Seaborn? I don't know, that didn't sound right when I said it out loud, but I'm close, but I don't think that's exactly right. But all those dimensions they're actually, for the most part, they're the correct dimension. The only dimensions that I compressed was the length of the building, and I only did it on the ones that were like greater than 50 feet long.
I was gonna say if you just omitted buildings versus shrinking buildings.
I omitted one. And
Sanborn map.
Sanborn, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Where I came up with C-SPAN at, I don't know. Sanborn, yes. Yeah, all the dimensions come from the Sanborn maps, and they also come from Google Earth because some of those buildings still stand today. And so I don't think if anything changes from the mock-up to the actual building, is I might make them a little bit smaller to make up for, the lamination of the material that's going to go on the outsides of them. Who is this Shannon guy?
Hey, Marcel, good to see you.
The best question in chat.
Good to see you, Marcel. Hope you're doing well.
Just a random guy that showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. John, see you later. Have a good one.
Hey, John.
Happy Father's Day to you too, sir.
Yeah, that's tomorrow, isn't it?
That's what they say.
I completely forgot about it because it's my anniversary weekend.
Happy anniversary. How many years?
8.
I thought it was 9.
I knew I could get a controversy started.
Dennis, has been 8 years.
Take her word for it, man. Well, it's been 44 for me, so.
Wow.
And now I have to stop and think about it now. When somebody asks me. So today is Tunnel Days in Startup, Washington. It celebrates the longest train tunnel in the U.S., Cascade Tunnel.
Cool.
Startup, Washington. That's a town in Washington. Sounds like it would be a gold town, a gold mining town or something, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Well, we just start one right here.
Jack wants to know, so how many buildings are actually in the planning for the whole layout, or are we talking about just Silver Gulch? Because up to now, everything that I've got the bench work built for right now, I've got a few more buildings that I need to mock up for frying pan, but I've put in frying pan on the back burner. Sorry, that was
a bad
I
time.
wasn't even
Or was
trying
it
to
a
do
pan?
But the frying pan area, that part of the layout, I know where the buildings are going to be. I'm confident that that area is going to work exactly the way I want it to. So the rest of the layout, what's going to wrap around the room, I've got the track plan for that, but none of the details of how it's going to work out are finished yet, so to speak. I have a good idea of what I want to do, and I've got a good working track plan, but there probably will be adjustments made to that now that the inside of the mushroom, so to speak, is complete, because some of my around loops on both where I'm going to come out of frying pan into this area right up above my workbench, some of that ended up, and I'm not even finished with it yet. So some of that is going to push out a little bit further into the room than I had originally anticipated. So the width of the track running north and south in the real world, I might need to adjust a little bit of that. So I'm going to look at that before, but I'm not in a hurry to do that. I want to finish what I've got, at least in one of those two towns, before I get carried away with the rest of the layout.
Well, they want to know why you're here, Dan. So why are you here? If it's your anniversary weekend, why are you here?
Well, our anniversary is actually on the 20th. Don't look at me like that.
I saw that too.
And I'm having to go to a work conference on the 20th, so we can't actually celebrate our anniversary on our anniversary. So we're going to do it the rest of the day today, as soon as I'm finished with this jazz.
Steve's explaining what startup at Washington is starting up the grade to get to the tunnel.
Oh, okay.
And then Mark said, it's more or less where the grade up the west slope of the Cascades on the Great Northern really starts. Okay, I didn't know that, but then I don't study that area. So, what else we got here?
I'm trying to look through chat and go back and forth on my screen at the moment.
Jack says frying pan with question marks. So the town that I'm modeling and I'm calling frying pan was actually Basalt, Colorado. That's where the prototype exists. And there are two rivers that converge there, the Frying Pan and the Roaring Fork. And because my railroad is a railroad of lies, none of it exists or existed the way I'm going to build it for my layout. I've made lots of things that probably a real HO narrow gauger would just cringe at, because it was standard gauge for one thing. My prototype was standard gauge, but I'm putting narrow gauge on it and doing it the way I want to do it because it's my railroad. I'm not naming any of those towns the names that they were originally. So I'm not going to call it Basalt. I'm not going to call it Black Hawk, which Black Hawk was on an entirely different railroad. Black Hawk was Colorado and Southern, not Colorado and Midland. And I'm running Denver and Rio Grande equipment, narrow gauge equipment. So all of it's, complete lies. So all of my town names will be complete lies as well. What's next? The Pot Gorge?
That's prototypically a fantasy.
No, he's talking about kitchen utensils.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, now I understand.
Yeah, but
So
that's
Dennis,
read both those comments.
yeah. So Dennis, so basically you're saying your railroad is prototypical fantasy. So even though the towns do exist,
I think the technical term is proto-lance, maybe. I don't know.
neither
the
do I.
railroad did exist. The towns did exist. A lot of the trackage, like Frying Pan, I did the trackage as closely to the real thing as I could in the space that I had. There's a crossover that I couldn't put in, and so there's some tweaking in the actual track arrangement for Basalt Colorado frying pan that I just couldn't do. But for the most part, it's fairly accurate. And of course, you know, Silver Gulch, that trackage is completely made up, because on the Colorado and Southern, like my trackage is, we'll say it's running east and west. On the Colorado and Southern, it ran north and south, and everything you see there actually was to what would be the west of the trackage that existed. There was no railroad there, other than there was one railroad bridge that crosses across there, that actually they ran across the top of the town there on Gregory Street. But I'm not modeling that because I'm just using it as a, you know what I just loved the way it looked, and it worked perfect for what I was trying to do.
Well, Jack just was asking, was that area had standard and narrow gauge? And no, it just had standard gauge.
In Basalt, that is correct.
Yeah.
Now my original termination, which will be over here to my left, it will be modeled after Leadville. Leadville had a bit of everything. The Colorado and Southern went through there. The Denver and Rio Grande went through there. Colorado and Midland went through there. And so there's some room there for dual gauge. That's another thing that I'm gone back and forth on, because I do have an opportunity. If I wanted to, I could put either a lift out or a swing bridge in front of my door here, and I could create a loop around the whole room that could be dual gauge, so that I could run standard gauge equipment across the main level of the layout. But I don't know that I've decided I want to do that or not yet.
Well, that's kind of what I did on mine.
It'd be very simple.
Standard gauge. Yeah, I just made that a loop to loop where I can run continuously. I can set that up. It's got automatic switches on the loops, and then I can work the narrow gauge in and out, because the narrow gauge crosses from the yard across both standard gauge tracks to get to the climb up the mountain. But yeah, like mine is completely freelance. There's nothing prototypical except some of the buildings, like the water towers I showed last week. Rolling stock and stuff like that will be, but other than that, everything else is just a figment of my imagination. You know, it would be plausible to have had it there, but not necessarily was there. So yeah, in fact, I don't even have a real location. My location is completely made up.
Yeah, the whole idea of my railroad is that what would have happened if all the financing for the Colorado Midland fell through and different investors came in with a different vision and decided that it would be smarter to use narrow gauge equipment from Basalt, or from Leadville to Basalt. And that's what they did instead. And it became the Otto Creek branch of the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad. That's how I'm kind of getting to where I'm going.
Jack says he saw a layout on YouTube where they had dual gauge. My question is, can it be challenging for a dual gauge layout?
Well, if you're going to do a dual gauge layout, you got to build your own track. That's just pretty much all there is to it. Which,
yeah, I mean,
every turnout on my layout right now I built. So
yeah, Shinhar did make some dual gauge turnouts and stuff, but you're limited on what you can get.
Right.
If you build your own, sky's the limit on what you can do with the track work. I've taken the three-way turnout and eliminated the center route and just made it a number 6Y. And then I've even tweaked that to fit But the narrow gauge, you know, once you build some of the switches and stuff with fast tracks or any other kind of system, once you've done a few of them, it becomes kind of second nature as to what you need to do. And you can tell what you're going to have and not. And of course, while you're building it, you've got a set of trucks there and your gauge and all that kind of stuff. And you're checking points and everything else that might pick a flange. But it's really not any harder than building any other layout. You just, at the point where you have dual gauge, you have to be only concerned about what side the narrow gauge is on. Right. And if you need to get to the other side, you may have to put a transition track in, which is not really hard. It just moves the narrow gauge from the right to the left or vice versa.
Where you put a guardrail and a point.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you
points involved at all, it's just a matter of, oh, I'm going over here now.
Yeah. And once you've built a few, you realize, okay, well, I'm changing the right or the left side of the truck to change rails. So now you've got to have a guardrail on the other one to make sure you stay that way, if that's the way you want it to go. Like I've got turnouts that are dual gauge coming in, but go out as either standard gauge or narrow gauge. And so in those situations, I don't have, one of them I have a moving point because of the side that narrow gauge is on, but when I'm on the correct side for the diverging for the narrow gauge, I don't have to have a moving point. I mean, I've got points there, but they're not moving points. And that's where you put the guardrail in and it pulls that particular one over. I think it's a lot of fun to build your own. But if you're going to do a dual gauge layout, you almost have to build your own to have the stuff that you need.
I think they look better too when they're finished, personally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like when I did my point work for the NN3, obviously because this bugger all available, you know, I 3D printed my own jigs and after the first one, obviously had trouble because trying to iron out, you know, how do I do this, how do I do that? But after that, second one, third one, fourth one, they just started flying out.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I say, to me, it's just a lot of fun to build them, but it really comes in handy when you want something special.
And like Jack says, oh my God, it sounds like it's a pain. Well, yeah, I mean, but again, that's what's beautiful about the hobby is everybody has different aspects that they're either good at or want to get out of the hobby. And I'm a modeler first, so modeling a turnout, you know, that's just one aspect of the hobby that I dearly enjoy. It's putting everything together, and a lot of people just want to get it put together so they can run trains, and that's awesome. You know, I'm not in a hurry to go through the process of what I'm doing just to get to the end goal of running trains, because the process of what I'm doing is what I love the most, is getting to where I want to be.
Yeah, Split Rock says fast track. If you use fast tracks fixtures, you'll be an expert by your third.
Split Rock must be better than me because it took more than 3 or 4. I wouldn't even say I'm still an expert, but I do feel like I'm pretty good. But yeah.
You're just a slow learner, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ask her.
And what was that? Where is it now? I lost it. Oh, here it is. Oh, no, that's not the one. That's not the one. There was one. Oh, here it is. Here it is. The main investor for Otter Creek and Rio Grande is sitting behind you. Be kind, be nice, buy flowers, take her to antique shops, and she might loan you more money. That's almost the situation I'm in too, except she doesn't give me money for it. She just lets me spend my money on it.
Well, that's beautiful in and of itself. That's pretty much the same arrangement we have. Yeah. My money's my money, her money's her money, and it works pretty good.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes my money's her money. Let's be honest.
Before I was out building airplanes and flying airplanes, and now I stay home most of the time. So, because the layouts here, instead of somewhere else.
I have trouble gluing two sticks together. So pass on building turnout.
Yeah, it can seem daunting at first, but if you buy the jigs, the filing jigs, I think are the most important.
Yeah.
Because those get you the correct angles that you need for whatever turnouts you're going to build. The jig itself is not necessarily a must-have. You can do it off the plans. Just go look at Jason Train Freak's building of his double slip switch. He's doing that on a paper plan, so you could do it that way if you have the basic knowledge of building one in the first place.
My suggestion would be whatever turnout you're going to have the most of, say it's a number 6 or a number 8, get the jig for it, build a bunch of them before you ever slap any on the layout. And by the time, like what Thomas says, you build 3 or 4 of them, of those 3 or 4, one of them you're going to I know this is going to work good, and then start putting them on the layout. And once you figure out that geometry, then you can very easily build on top of a piece of paper, because you know what you're doing, you know what needs to be done, and you might not need to build, if you want a number 4, but all you've got is a fixture for, a number 6 or a number 8, you can get the paper template for the number 4, and you can build it just fine. You can probably also build it with the tools that you bought for the number 6. It just needs to be, you just might have to hand file the points and the frog a little bit differently once you get them, but it's not hard. It takes patience, and if you enjoy that kind of thing, the modeler aspect of the hobby, it's very rewarding.
Yeah. Well, and like I say, you can make different things out of the jigs too. Like having a dual gauge turnout that diverges in single gauge either direction. That's not something that they have a separate jig for. That jig came off a dual gauge jig. But I built all of my number 6 narrow gauge and standard gauge turnouts off a dual jig because they're both there. So I just had to buy a right and left dual jig, and that gave me all my dual turnouts, and they gave me all my number 6 standard and narrow gauge turnouts instead of having to buy 3 separate sets of jigs. And the reason I had to buy 2 of the dual gauge jigs is because on one, the narrow gauge is on the right side, on the other one, it's on the left side. And you have to have both. If you do a crossover with the narrow gauge, you have to do one of each so that when you turn them facing each other, they line up properly.
Yeah.
But, other than that,
have for those, Claude? Do you have a crossover that involves?
Yeah, there's a couple, 3 of them. Dual gauge crossovers, yeah. I got a couple, at least 2 I know of, and I think there's 3. In fact, one's on my lift up bridge. So it's actually on that bridge. But it's not any harder to do than a standard gauge or single narrow gauge crossover. It's just the fact that you have to pay attention that when you face 2 of them, if you build 2 left diverging turnouts with the narrow gauge on the right and try to face those together, your narrow gauge is not going to line up. Your standard gauge would line up, but your narrow gauge is not going to line up. So you have to kind of keep that in mind, but you only make that mistake once, and then you figure it out and go, okay, well, then it's got to be this way. And you use that other turnout that you've already built that was wrong, you put that somewhere else. But it's very easy to build them and customize them the way you want, which is, to me, is a lot of fun.
Start to do what I do and just 3D print your jigs and draw it up on computer, make your own plans, and then bend bugger all on jigs and templates.
Yeah, you can do it that way too. Now, fast tracks are aluminum jigs. Steve actually bought some, and I can't remember I want to say it's Blue Tracks or something like that.
I was going to say it's blue something. I think Blue
Yeah,
Tracks is
and
correct.
his are made from
Carbon fiber, I think, or
yeah, it's the same. I think it's the same stuff they used to use on the face of golf clubs on the driver and stuff. It's a really hard plastic kind of material.
yeah.
And
I
his
wasn't too terribly impressed with mine. It got the job done, but it's not Fast Tracks. I'll just say that.
you know, oh, did you have one of them?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah.
I ordered one for a 60 by 32 curve turnout because that's one downside about Fast Tracks and HO narrow gauge is they have a limited amount of specialty stuff, which wouldn't bother me if they don't have the fixture. What I don't like is that they don't have the paper templates either. I would love to see them create, like for every paper template that they have for HO standard gauge, that they also produce the same radiuses and specialty turnouts or whatever for the narrow gauge as well, so that we could build on top of the template.
Yeah.
That's why I got it, is because, you know, I just couldn't get a paper template for it, and it wasn't near as expensive as a Fast Tracks jig. So I thought, well, what the hell? I'll get one, and it worked, but I don't think the radiuses are accurate on it.
Yeah.
The outside radius might be, but I think the distance from the frog to the point on the inside radius makes it a lot tighter than the 32 that it was advertised as. I think it's closer to a 19 or a 20, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is, if you change out from, say, a standard, I've got a number 8 narrow gauge curve turnout. If I wanted to make that, say, a number 12, something like that, that's going to change my filing angles. Not so much on the points. The points are going to be about the same, but your frog filing angle is going to be a little bit different. So that's more of a hit and miss. You got to, you know, file a little bit, put it together, see if it's going to fit on your paper template or whatever you're using, because you're not going to get a jig like that from Fast Tracks. So you've got to kind of make it fit, which shouldn't be that hard to do. I've not tried to do it, but it shouldn't be that hard to do, to just eyeball that to the point where you can get it close enough. Because the most important part of that frog is the very point. Yep. You know, if you file it, say you're trying to make it really narrow and you file it too flat, that's fine, because you can always spread it a little bit and just fill that void with solder and it'll be plenty solid. But it's hard to go the other direction. So if you've got a 45-degree filing and you need to go a lot narrower, you're going to have to do that by eye and get it down where you can work it. We're getting pretty close to the end here. We got a couple minutes left. Hey, Allie's jumped in.
And tie plates. Plus, he designs them to interconnect. So now it's possible. Just kind of catching up here.
Oh, he's answering Allie's question. Mark says, you just want everything, don't you, Dennis? Gail agrees with that, Mark.
A little bit of everything is nice, yeah.
I saw her shaking her head. Yeah, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if people don't start making turnout jigs on 3D with 3D printers. Your only problem there would be the heat from soldering.
No, actually, the heat from soldering doesn't actually affect the resin too much.
It doesn't? Okay.
Like, obviously, it'll heat up the areas where you put the ties and the corners all chip away, but the majority of the jig, which holds the rail and the tie in place, you know, they'll never get damaged.
So yeah, so I could see that being a cost-effective way to get those. If you can find somebody that'll print them out for you, you know, can design them and print them out.
Isn't
the main
there's a company
is the size, because like with my printer, I can only probably if I was to do HON3, probably the biggest I'll be able to do is like a number 5. But if I was to do like a number 8 or whatever, I'd have to print it in 2 parts where, when you get the jig, they can interconnect with each other so you can then do the whole turnout.
Make the whole thing. Yeah.
A good channel to watch on building a yard ladder with fast tracks and is it Central Valley Ties? I can't think of the name of the company, but Ray at the Bessemer and Lake Erie, he created a whole yard ladder system using 36-inch rail, where a whole 36-inch piece of rail is the point, and he built it all in place on the railroad. He didn't build one at a time. He built a whole ladder system.
The whole piece together.
Super fantastic job that he did there, and how he did it. I would love to be able to do it that way. I'm going to look into it. Problem is with narrow gauge, you don't have that option of being able to slide the rail through the pre-laid ties like he did. So I don't know. I'm going to think about it when I get to my big yard in City.
Well, I actually built a small ladder, just 2 turnouts, but they're together. The stock rail on the long side is all one piece.
Yeah.
And did it that way. And it wasn't really hard to do. You just build one of them and have plenty of rail off, and you slide it down and do the other. But that way you can get your points, because that's what a yard ladder is. Your points are closer together to your frogs.
Right.
You don't have as much room in between like you would have with a commercial turnout.
Right.
Okay, so anyway, we're out of time, guys. There again, didn't know what we're going to talk about. Here we are at the end of the show. Shannon, I hope you get to feeling better, dude, because you look like something the cat drug in. But anyway, Dennis and Gail, thank you all for being here. It was fun watching your face, Gail.
That's right.
Y'all have a happy anniversary too, by the way.
The boredom with occasional.
No, it was when she was doing this or this and agreeing with somebody in chat. Oh, everybody in chat, thanks a lot. We'll be back next week. And remember, the week of 4th of July, we will not be here. But the week before the 4th, we won't be here. But which I think is 2 weeks from today. So, but until then, everybody have a good time, a good weekend, and a good week, and we'll see you later. Thanks again,
Goodbye.
Shannon. All righty, bye.